Yo, what's up everybody? It's Drewberry and back with another custom card video. Dude, I'm so hyped to show you guys these cards because I feel like these are the most game-changing cards that could be implemented into Snap that we've had to date. It's so cool because it focused around the keyword energy, which has really big implications in the game, and there's a fine-tuning balance that needs to happen. And maybe we broke that boundary a little bit, but hey, it was pretty cool. So, next week's challenge. Cards that contain two or more of these keywords. So it's not just one specific keyword. I don't really care which keywords you choose, as long as there's two in the text, okay? So it's the basic keywords in Marvel Snap: on reveal, ongoing, no ability, discard, move, and destroy. So just pick two of those and find a way to make it work on a card. A few examples for you guys is like Wolverine. So if he's discarded or destroyed, he gets +2 power and he's put in a random location, right? Or another one is Electro, who has on reveal +1 max energy, but ongoing, you can only play one card per turn. So that kind of idea, right? You got to put two keywords in the text. I feel like that's actually pretty liberating almost. You got tucked behind one keyword and have to design the card. There's a few different possibilities that you could take this. And it'd be nice to see more cards in Snap that can work in both kinds of decks. I think that's really fun. Even like another one would be Kingpin. When you move a card over to this location on turn 6, it gets destroyed. Stuff like that. If you want to submit a card, jump into the Berryverse Discord. I'll have the link in the description. It's a great community. We talk about custom cards, but we also talk about strategy in the game, upcoming news, leaks, data mines, all that good stuff. So definitely jump in. And then you can create a card right here, which is a fantastic tool now for creating a card. It used to be very basic, I would say, but now there's a lot of more elements for adding their art, changing your text, transparent background, which helps me out a lot. So yeah, it's a really great tool if you want to just build a card and submit one. And then when you want to submit the card, just post it in the weekly challenge channel, and please just submit one card. If you want to submit something new, just go back and delete the old one. All right, let's get to this week's winners. But first, of course, we got my card, and I got Vulcan here, okay? So Vulcan is a 3/8 start of the game. Set your energy to 3. Cannot be increased or decreased. I wanted to make something in Snap like that. You know, you'd have to build a deck for this, right? There's no way you can bring any 4, 5, or 6 cost cards in a deck like this and have it work, because you cannot increase your energy after, right? So if you can imagine, here's how it works. Start of the game, boom, you got 3 energy. That means on turn 1, you have a surplus of energy. You have 3. That means you could play, let's say a really good combination would be Storm. You can play Storm on turn 1. Boom, you're already up on 2 power, plus you can play something else on the following turn with 3 energy, because on turn 2, you're going to have a surplus of 1. You're going to have 3 energy to spend compared to your opponent's 2. But that's when it starts to change, because on turn 3, you're going to have the same amount of energy as your opponent. And every turn after that, you're going to have less. 4, you're going to have 1 less. 5, you're going to have 2 less. 6, you're going to have 3 less. And if you were counting, by the end of it all, you actually end up with a net less amount of energy than you would if you just played a normal game of Snap. So it's really trying to hyper take advantage of those early turns, turn 1 and 2. See if you can steal a location on just that. And then maybe you don't need that energy later on. You know, Vulcan here is a 3/8. I offset his power to be a lot because of that lack of energy in the late game. So it gives you kind of like a turn 6 option, and it dodges Shang-Chi. So I thought this would be like the perfect finisher for this style of deck. So he just has 8 power to carry the deck on his own. But then there's other options, like we're talking like Juggernaut. There's a lot of good 3-drops, even Silver Surfer, right? If you just play a lot of 3-drops, because mind you, you could play 1 3-drop every single turn, right? So you'd end up with 6 3-drops by the end of the turn, end of the game, and that one of them being Silver Surfer, giving buffs to all 5 of those. That's pretty decent. What if Brood is one of them, right? That'd be a nice combination. Could work really well in the Silver Surfer deck. And another card I thought could be pretty good is Goose. Goose, you can only play 1, 2, or 3 cost cards at the Goose location, and you only have 3 energy every turn, so that works out beautifully for you. So I thought that would be pretty neat. Anyways, is it too strong? I don't think so. Is it too weak? I don't know. Honestly, I think it could just make a totally new archetype on its own, right? And it'd be really fun to deck build and theory craft with a card like this. So also a few nuances, like if somebody waved you, I think that's like the worst thing that could happen to you, because you do not have 4 energy. All your cards are going to cost 4. You'd be absolutely ruined. So that could be a neat way to keep this kind of deck in check if it ever got too popular, right? If Electro was played off of like, I don't know, expansion or something, you're not getting that +1 max energy. It's just going nowhere. You're not getting any of it, okay? Cannot be increased, okay? And decreased, I guess that would never really happen, but I was just thinking there's no like depreciation on your energy levels. It's 3 the whole way through. All right, that's my card. Let's get to your winners. Number 10, Triple CX3's Northstar. All right, so Northstar is a 1/5, so well above premium, right? This is a very good stat line. Think of like Titania, right? Okay, so at the end of each turn, afflict this card with -1 power for each unspent energy. So if you pass on turn 5, that's 5 unspent energy, and Northstar is now going to be a 1/0. Absolute bummer. Okay, you don't want that to happen, but there's a few ways we could get around this. One being 0. You see it a lot in your games, I'm sure. You see people playing 0 and then Titania because it's just 2 energy for 8 power. It's just really, really good. So easy play is 0 Northstar, and then you don't have to worry about leaving unspent energy on its own right. Another way is just to have a really aggressive line of play. You play a lot of cards, maybe you play Sentinel, right? And you get Sentinels back and you always have something to play so you don't kind of curve out, and you always have something to play and you don't leave unspent energy behind. But the best one, I thought, the really surprising one could be Luke Cage. How cool would it be if you played Northstar on turn 1 or something like that, and then maybe you're like past a couple turns, you play She-Hulk or something along those lines, but you got Luke Cage out there, and that would bring Northstar's power could not decrease. It would go back up to the 5, and that could be a little surprise burst on your opponent who thought, they really blew it, leaving energy behind. So anyways, I thought that was an interesting take on energy, and you're going to see this come up a lot in these submissions about unspent energy, which honestly, when I started this challenge, I didn't even think about it, but when people started bringing it up in the Discord, I was like, yeah, of course that counts. Like energy, unspent energy, Sunspot, She-Hulk, Infinite, like we got these cards, of course let's put them in. And really interesting ideas like Northstar here. Let's get to number 9. Number 9, Great Guardians, Songbird. All right, so Songbird kind of plays on a similar theme, and I like them both so much that I put them in. That's why they're at the top here. Is Songbird is a 2/6. At the end of each turn, if you have less unspent energy than your opponent, this switches sides. I always love little mini quests, little mini races built into games that make sense logically, and this is kind of neat, but you never really know what your opponent's going to do, right? So you're trying to have less unspent energy, which is just another way to say that you want to use all of your energy whenever possible if you want to keep Songbird on your side of the location. Now, I don't know what would happen in a tie in this instance. I imagine if whoever's owning the card keeps it at that time, if it's a tie, like turn 5, you both use 5 cost cards and she just stays put, right? And maybe there's a world where you want to have less unspent energy so that your opponent gets that card and then they can't like finish off their combo. You gave them 6 power, but maybe you pull it back on the last turn, possibly. I mean, that would never be guaranteed. That's the trouble with this one compared to Titania, where you can set that location lock where you know you'll get Titania back on the last turn. If they play out, their 6th turn with a 6 cost card or something like that, they're probably going to keep Songbird. So there's an inherent risk there. But we could go the 0 route again, right? Just remove that awful ability, get 6 power. Now we're looking at 3 energy for 9 power. That's a pretty good ratio. She-Hulk also, we could pass, like I was saying, if we want to, have unspent energy, give this card to our opponent. Well, She-Hulk's a nice play. And then we have Venom, who's always just a good option whenever a card has high power for low cost, right? You could straight up play on turn 5 Songbird and then Venom just to eat it up, and then your Venom's at least 7 plus maybe other synergies. So that could be a nice combo right there too. Anyways, Great Guardian, this was an awesome card. Thank you for submitting. Let's get to number 8. Number 8, Sovereign's Superior Ironman. All right, Superior Ironman. This is a card I have seen a bunch, but I haven't quite put it in just yet, and here it finally makes the cut. It is a 4/0. Starting next turn, after your opponent plays a card, you get +1 max energy. Every time your opponent plays a card, you get +1 max energy. Okay, well, what is the downside to it? Ongoing cards in your opponent's hand cost 1 less, minimum of 1. So you're essentially giving your opponent Sarah discounts, right? But you're getting maximum energy every time they play a card. You are also losing out big time on tempo. If you are not playing Mr. Negative to flip this around or something discounting it or Zabu or whatever else, this is going to be 4/0. And that is slow. That is super slow. You might get a lot of energy to spend on those later turns, like on 5 and 6, but it might not end up being enough. And if they only play 1 card per turn, then it doesn't really matter, right? But you are discounting their hand, so you're incentivizing them to just rip through their hand, play a whole bunch of cards. Honestly, I think the payoff is probably too good, because getting max energy is probably going to feel a little bit better than their cards being discounted, and it's probably going to play into your strategy. That's, you play this card, you plan for this to happen. But then I don't know, Zera discounts the whole hand. They might end up with more energy than you did, and if you spend 4 to do this, you're trying to get that 4 back almost, because it's an energy play. So maybe it's not all that strong. I just feel like there could be some really crazy scenarios. But if you, and not to mention, if they play the cards on turn 6, then you don't get this anyways. It's like a dead card playing this on 6 or 5, because you don't need the extra energy after turn 6 unless you somehow got limbo. So then there's that problem too. You kind of have to play this early. I'm changing my mind while I'm talking about it. I actually think this might end up being weak because it's very niche in the scenarios. Now, if you high roll it off of like Jubilee, or you play it with negative and you get it out early, okay, then that could be really, really valuable. But otherwise, maybe a little bit too slow. Even playing it on curve, I feel like your opponent could take advantage more than you would benefit from the effect. But it's really interesting. That's why I was drawn to this card, is I really like the idea of what are you willing to risk here. If you give your opponent the control over the influence of the energy for the remainder of the game, is it going to work out for you? Is it not going to work out for you? How do you build your deck around this? I don't know. I don't even know what to do. My first thought was like, a bunch of 6-cost cards so I could play one early, but that's not all that great either, because then you could play Electro and it's doing the same thing, and he at least gives you 2 power. So maybe there's a secret sauce I'm missing here, but I like the card. I like the card a lot. In negative deck, I think that's how I would run this card, but otherwise might be tricky to pull off. But there's probably something I'm missing. I always miss things all the time, so definitely let me know in the comments. But Sovereign, this was an awesome card. Thank you very much for submitting. Number 7, Ramona's GwenPool. Oh my gosh, I love this art. This is so good. I cannot wait for this card to come to the game. It is technically data mined, but I think it has a placeholder effect and placeholder art, so I have no idea when this card will ever actually come out, but I'm stoked for it. So Ramona made GwenPool a 4/3. For every card destroyed while this is in play, +1 energy on turn 6. Direct synergy with Deadpool. Let's go. That's so cool. Obviously, you want to destroy Deadpool as much as possible, and this is only going to set you up for a crazy turn 6. Honestly, I think that when I was reviewing this card, I was like, this is so cool. I love the idea. I love the look. Everything is amazing, but this is probably absolutely broken. If you play a bunch of destroy decks, you're destroying things all the time. Literally, if you got GwenPool out and you play Killmonger on 5 and you destroy like 6 things, dude, you're talking like crazy turn 6 on top of probably your death that costs nothing, and then you could copy it with Taskmaster and then maybe play a crazy big Deadpool. Like, all these things would just absolutely be wild. But I love the idea of destroy mixing with getting energy, and this ramp style destroy deck would be so much fun. Now, she does cost 4, so not the easiest to get out. Maybe if it's a little bit too late, I don't know. Like, you have to do the big setup on 5. You got to wait to destroy things on 5. And because by turn 6, it's too late, right? So there's that inherent problem of you need to get this out on 4 or possibly earlier, because Abu and everything else, like, you can maybe do a little bit of that. But otherwise, I feel like this will, more often than not, set up a really big turn. And if your opponent saw the GwenPool and the opponent sees that you destroyed a few things, they're probably out of there. Killmonger seems to be the biggest and best setup for this card, but I'm sure there's other things, like even Null, dude. Null's problem is that you play him on turn 6, and then that's kind of it. It's the only card that you can play. But if you got 6 other energy accompanied on your turn 6, you can play Null plus whatever else. And then also, there's so many locations that destroy things for you, right? There's so many destroyed locations, like Rickety Bridge comes to mind, a Death's Domain, right? So like, these are all going to help fuel that GwenPool and the destroy packages as a whole, for a crazy turn 6. So anyways, I really like this idea, though. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's just a little bit overpowered, but I don't know how you balance it, right? Because if you made it a 5, it doesn't really work, because you got to get GwenPool out on 5. You have to destroy things at some point, and then you want the energy for turn 6, so that doesn't work. You can't really drop her power, because her power isn't the influence on this card, and that benefits negative decks, which actually could do really well with like a Null Arnim Zola package. Then we're talking crazy. Oh, and we got to talk about the art really quick. Oh my gosh. So the base art looks fantastic, all right? That comic book style. And then the left, like a baby variant, that looks like Scotty Young. I don't even know. It looks perfect. Straight out of the game, it should be. And then the bottom left one looks so cool with the katana and the gun and everything. Like, oh my gosh. Love the artwork, all these variants would be absolute fire in the game. So I just want this character to be in so bad. Oh my god, so cool. Anyways, thank you so much, Ramona. Number 6, GTRichardson's Havok. Dude, this card is so good. And look at all the artwork. I got like a slideshow going because GTRichardson made like 7 or 8 variants, I don't even know, and they are all absolute fire. So I'm just going to let that cycle through so you guys can stare at those while I talk about this really cool card. So Havok is a really cool card as well. The character, rather. Oh, look at the Dan hip right there. So good. Yeah, so from the X-Men universe. Very cool. So 3-0, ongoing, add the energy cost of all opposing cards here to this card's power. How cool is that? So the idea being that when your opponent plays cards there, they're going to stack up a whole bunch of energy, and then you can maybe even get this out early, right? So if you play Havok, let's play Havok on turn 3. My opponent hasn't played anything there yet. 0 power. Okay. But then they play a Korg. Okay, Havok now has 1 power. Right? Still not enough. That Korg is outplaying us. But then maybe they're going to go for like a strange play and they're going to play like Sandman. Okay? They play Sandman, right? And then bam, that's 5 energy. Okay, Havok's now a 3-6. Now we're talking. Now we got some really good value. Maybe on that very same turn, I sent over Hobgoblin to my opponent's side, who not only gave him -8 power, but gave Havok +5. Oh, now we're at 11. A 3-11. Now we're really talking. Then my opponent, I don't know, Dr. Doom's elsewhere and accidentally puts a Doombot there. That's another 6. I do believe those Doombots are 6 cost cards. So bam, boom. It's just crazy value. And then obviously the downside being that if your opponent doesn't play anything there, then they get nothing. If they move things away, then Havok gets nothing. It's a tempo loss, 3-0. Synergizes with Mr. Negative though. I could see this being in a negative deck because it'd just be straight up free, 3 power plus anything else your opponent has there. And you could save it for turn 6 and just play it wherever they've accumulated the most energy costed cards. And then it's just a crazy power spike. I see this in like the realm of like Devil Dino, which almost makes me feel like it could cost maybe a little bit more because it can get to some really crazy power totals pretty quickly for its cost. So maybe it could be like a 4-0 or something like that, but really interesting card. Another one is Mystique. Mystique's a 3-0 herself. She'd love to have this ongoing ability. Why not copy that? And they obviously suffer from the same weakness, just like Devil Dino does, just like a lot of the ongoing cards do that have low power but get to high totals, is Enchantress and Rogue. So you'd have to watch out for that sort of thing. But dude, it'd be such a cool card in Snap because it's a counter to those really greedy decks that are kind of ramping up into those high cost stuff like Electro. We're seeing it a lot right now. I've seen it quite a bit with the Electro into the Sandman, the Dr. Doom, stuff like that. Well, guess what? Havok is going to absolutely ruin your day when you play this because you probably don't have time to play all your high curve cards plus counter him, and he's only stacking even higher in the place that you want to play those cards. Also, really nice counter to Arrow. What if Havok's the last card that you played, Arrow pulls it over, you're going to get at least 5, right? Plus whatever else the Arrow play did. So that's kind of decent. Unless, of course, Arrow's the only one there, then maybe it's not so good. But anyways, it's a pretty good option to get thrown over. Anyway, I just love, dude, the artwork, you went hard on it, and I love it. They were all so good. And the card itself is just really, really neat. So this was an awesome job. Thank you for submitting. Number 5, D. Hicks Hyperion. Yeah, you try to get me there, D. Hick. I got you. I see your name. I got you. Hyperion, no. Very, very cool card. I absolutely adore this idea of a card. I just don't know how it would fare in the power levels of Marvel Snap. So what is this card? It's a 4/13. Absolutely busted, pretty much. On reveal, destroy your energy. Okay. So there's a few things to pick up here. Honestly, if this was tuned a little bit more, I probably would have ranked it higher because I really love the idea of destroying your energy. And for the rest of the game, my power will be treated as your energy, can't be played on turn 6. Here's a few cards that like synergize this way too much. It's 0, right? So we already got 0 Red Skull, now it's 0 Hyperion, which is a 4/13. That's just really good. You get rid of destroying your energy in the whole thing, kind of wild. Not to mention if you play this on 4, right, a 4/13, mind you, which should have a negative downside, but it doesn't. It actually ramps you up because on turn 5 you would only have 5 energy, and turn 6 you would only have 6 energy. That's 11. So you're actually getting +2 max energy total. So 4/13 +2 max energy is kind of broken. Now Here's some counters though, right? I'm sure you're probably thinking of these. You'd have to pair this with armor, right? You'd have to, because if your opponent Shang-Chi's this, they're not only destroying your high-powered card, they are destroying your energy for the second time, because you already destroyed it, then your opponent's going to get rid of it, and then you have nothing to do on those later turns, which would be absolutely devastating. So pairing this with the armor is paramount. Also, obviously, every card that you're playing, you're reducing the energy, the power total of this card. So this ends up, if we spent all 13 of our energy, this ends up being a 4-0, and we ramped up 2, right? So we can't forget that part. But I could also play this in a Cosmo lane, and then you don't destroy your energy. Now, DHick also clarified that if you did play this at a Cosmo lane, that it would not destroy your energy, but for the rest of the game, effect would still occur. So you would still be pulling from this card's energy, or power rather, to use as your energy source. I don't know what that would look like when you hit 0 on Hyperion, how that, implies. So the idea is, on turn 5, you could play 13 energy worth of cards. And then Hyperion would have 0. Do you have energy on 6? Like, I don't know if it spills over. I imagine it doesn't, and that's just straight up it. Do you continuously buff Hyperion? Shuri, right? DHick mentioned Shuri is a crazy combo because now you have 26 energy to spend. Oh my gosh, you won the game at this point. If you can get Shuri out early in Hyperion, it is absolutely cracked. Or do you just go for that crazy turn 6, right? Shuri on 4, Hyperion on 5, and then just crazy plays on turn 6. So the combos here are just wild. Like, I just think it's a little bit absolutely crazy. And then what happens with Luke Cage? Luke Cage says your power can't be reduced, but this is your energy at this point? I don't know. The implications are just wild. Like, would it just go back to 13 and I have infinite energy? Like, that'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. Or do you just get your force 13 back, but you lose the energy? You don't have the energy anymore. That would just be a little bit more balanced. But still, you play Luke Cage on turn 6 when you already have 26 energy to spend because you Shuri'd Hyperion. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. Overall, that's why I just had to put this at 5. I think it's a very unique and interesting concept to talk about, but it's broken. It's just broken. It's just got to be broken. Like, it's a really cool one, though. Really cool. Honestly, I think we could have the power. We could literally have the power, and the synergies that would still spout from this card would be strong enough to carry it, and it would work just fine. But I really do like the idea of making it so that a card becomes your energy source. And there is, word for concern, like this has to be within Shang-Chi range to give your opponent a counter option, but then armor exists, and it just makes it too easy to pair together. So I don't know, but it is really cool. Really cool, and the artwork looks absolutely fantastic. The top left one is amazing, just punched through the roof, and the main one looks awesome too. So great job with this card. Very creative. Number 4, Cabbage Cage's Spot. Oh, Cabbage Cage does it again. I cannot get enough of this art style. It is so good, and this is authentic. Cabbage Cage makes this themselves, and it's so good. I'll have the full version because you can see the animated and everything, how he's punching through the little portal, his little spot. Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's like the best artwork of Spot I've ever seen. And the ability is fire. So a 4/3 at the end of the turn, if you're winning this location, steal 1 energy from your opponent. I love using steal. We don't see it enough in Snap. It's fascinating. Rogue is very cool. It's difficult to pull off. You can't always pull this off. Even Spot might be difficult to pull off because it has that Autumn Warlock effect of you need to keep winning that location. But it's a bit difficult because Spot isn't really helping you out that much. At turn 4, it's a bit of a tempo loss. If you can cheat it out early, maybe something like that. Another Zabu to target. Like, if you can do that, then maybe happy days. But overall, it might be difficult to get to that high enough power or winning that location to steal the energy. But here's how I imagine it would work. You steal 1 energy on turn 5. I don't think that would bleed into turn 6. If you're winning again at the end of turn 5, then I feel like you would steal 1 from turn 6, so they only have 5. But you're not going to steal 2 because you already stole 1 previously. Do you see what I'm saying here? Like, it's 1 per turn, which is nice. It just kind of ruins their tempo and gives you a burst, a buff. So I could see this working with, like, I don't know, like Storm, right? If you set up a Sunspot, Storm, and then Spot there, right? And your Sunspot can at least get buffed, and then that allows you that energy swing on the later turns, oh my gosh, that'd be so good. And any decks that rely on playing 6-drops, but you can establish your spot location, you're going to ruin their day. They're going to be absolutely screwed. And I think that is so funny. What if you can even copy spot and end up winning 2 locations and get all their energy? It's just like a win more card, but you got to be winning. That condition ain't easy to meet. Like if you played Adam Warlock, you probably know, like you'll hit it sometimes, but a lot of times you won't. And when your opponent recognizes that's what you're trying to do, they're going to start stacking power there and they're going to try and beat you so they don't lose this energy tempo. And then you've actually kind of lost energy because you've invested in that location that you're now losing and not reaping the rewards from spot. So that's how I feel like this card is balanced, despite having a very powerful effect when it's pulled off. It's very reminiscent of Adam Warlock, but man, it's so good. And the artwork is just fire. I love the Infinity Burst. I love the Spider-Verse look on the bottom left. Oh my gosh, but your art style is just absolutely steals my heart. It's so good. Well done again, Cabbage Cage. Number 3, Aya 004's Arishem. Dude, I love this idea. Oh my gosh, these top 5, actually, the top 5, the ideas were through the roof. I love all of these ideas, but this one is a throwback. If anybody doesn't know it yet, I played Hearthstone for years. I played Hearthstone for like 8 years. When I was in beta for Hearthstone, I played it a whole bunch. I loved that card game, but it did take a while and it was expensive, so I dropped it for Snap because it's better. Anyways, so Molten Giant, if you know, you know. Molten Giant wasn't always in wild format in Hearthstone. It used to be a standard card that people would play a lot because it was so good, and this reminded me so much of that, and it got me thinking. Okay, I haven't even gotten to the ability. I don't even care. You can read it. I think that we should have a line of characters that have the same kind of effects like this, and they could be the Celestials. How cool would that be? We have big bads and all this stuff. We have the Celestials like Arishem here, and they all have crazy energy, crazy power. Now, the obvious problem, and I'm realizing this is more and more of a card building, card design constraint in Marvel Snap, is we have Jubilee and Lockjaw. These are problem cards because they cheat these high power cards out without worrying about their cost. So obviously that's a problem. But Arishem here, at least it's like another Infinite. Maybe that deck takes off a little bit too far because now you have 2 Infinite options in your deck to pull with the Jubilee Lockjaw. Let's just forget Infinite exists. We have Arishem instead, okay? We could cycle these cards out possibly. Okay, so Arishem, 20. Ain't that crazy? You ever seen a stat line like that? Well, cost 1 less for each energy spent by your opponent. This card can't have its cost reduced any other way. That last line of text is to prevent cheating from Wave, I would imagine, right? Or even Elysium as a location, Sarah discounts, anything like that. But they're not gonna have that much of an implication compared to Wave. So I really feel like it's a Wave counter or disabling that potential combination, which makes a lot of sense to me because the ability is fun to play with anyways. So if your opponent's spending energy, right? They're spending every single turn, they're leaving nothing behind. No one spent energy 1, 2, turn 3, 4, etc. By turn 6, right? Because it doesn't matter if they leave unspent energy or spend their energy on turn 6, we need to play this card, right? So by turn 6, right, they will have spent 15 energy, making Arishem a 5 cost card. That's not all that great, but it is really, really good to have a 5/20. I mean, we look at Infinite, you play Infinite on turn 6, you had to pass the previous turn, you're playing a 6/20, that's your big final play. With Arishem, you're playing for 5, maybe, but your opponent had to leave nothing unturned. Like every single turn didn't pass, like had a 1 drop on turn 2, played 2 cost, like all of that stuff. If they pass a few of those turns, you will not be able to play Arishem. Like maybe if you get Limbo out there, maybe if you had Electro, you get a few extra points of energy. Maybe there's some locations that help you out, right? We could talk about like Altar of Death, where you put a bunch of cards there, they get destroyed, you get +2 energy, stuff like that. So maybe there's a means of playing it otherwise, but I think for the most part, you really got to hope that your opponent plays a bunch of cards. And I think that's so much fun, dude. It'd be so much fun. You're playing the game and you're holding Arishem in your hand and you're just like watching it discount every time your opponent plays a card. You're like, yes, keep playing cards. Yes, you're helping me. Yeah, let's go. And then maybe you copy it with like Moon Girl or something like that. I mean, you can't discount it, so I guess you'd never be able to play 2, but maybe Maximus, and then they get more cards, they have more options, they got to play the cards, they feel like they got to play their cards. I don't know, maybe you even literally like Viper over a Sarah or something, just to give them more possibilities, spend more energy, even though that's a discount, it gets them to play more cards. You know what I'm saying, right? Very cool card. I love this concept. It'd be so cool to have a whole bunch of Celestials that have these crazy constraints, but cost reductions, right? So really high energy costs, but cost reduction somehow that can't be cheated, a few extra steps. I don't know. I thought the idea was beautiful. I love it so much. Thank you, Aya. Number 2, Maverick's Manifold. Dude, this one's so good. If this isn't what move needs, I don't know what they do need, because he is a 3/1. At the start of each turn, you can spend energy to move friendly cards. 1 energy per move. Oh my gosh, dude, this is such a cool idea. It'd be so much fun to play with. This is so interactive, right? So just imagine at the start of the turn, every card's floating. They're floating. And you have an energy and you can move them and boom, 1 energy's gone. Boom, 1 energy's gone. So you could basically play Manifold if you already like the cards that you got on the field. Let's say you have Vulture and Torch, right? Happy days. Free moves every single turn. That could be broken. That actually could be broken when you talk about it like that, right? Or maybe you just have like high value cards that you just want to move around. You just keep your opponent guessing. You keep moving them around. But mind you, you're using energy. And that's no cheap price, right? You want to play your cards. You got to get power out there at some point. Manifold's not doing it for you. So you got to like get those cards out. But I imagine straight up, you just play a few of those move cards. Holy smokes. You got your dagger out. You just keep moving her back and forth to a location with a lot of cards on your opponent's side of the field. Yeah, I think you just straight up end up moving cards all the time. It'd be so much fun. This would be so much fun. And even then, maybe move doesn't take off because Dagger's still relying on your opponent having stuff. Torch can still get sniped by Killmonger. And then there's Vulture, who's probably the best combo with this, but you're playing Vulture on 4 probably. Maybe if you can get it out before Manifold, but unlikely. So you're playing Vulture on 4. You can move him twice off of the Manifold effect with turn 5 and 6. I just really feel like maybe this is what move needs. Like move needs more resources. It actually can be a very good deck. You can build a good move deck. It just gets countered so hard, or it gets location locked so hard. And that's another thing. Maybe you don't even run this in a move deck. Maybe you just move cards because there's locations that you got to get to. Right? Like we know how powerful it can be when Sanctum Sanctorum's out and you have an ability to get a card over there. And there's a lot of those locations that you can't play cards in Snap. So not too shabby. Anyways, genius idea. I love the idea of paying a toll to do an action rather than playing a card. That's very fascinating to me in Snap. So very, very cool Manifold. This was a great card. Let's get to number 1. Number 1, Bloons Tower Defense, Wiccan. Okay, we have seen Wiccan like so many times in the custom card reviews. I've covered it a couple times. I've seen a whole bunch of this character in the submissions. It's a very frequently used character, but this has to be the best Wiccan I have seen yet because it's simple, it makes sense, it's a competition between you and your opponent. I just love this so much. Oh my gosh, I adore this card. And before I even get into it, look at the foil splits in the back there with the bubbles in the back. Very nice touch. That looks so slick. The artwork fantastic. We'll get there in a second. So Wiccan is a 2/2 ongoing. Whoever has priority gets +1 max energy. Boom, boom. Now it's a race to have prio. You know, maybe I Viper over that ghost to my opponent's side and I get +1 max energy for the rest of the game. How about that one? How about that? You're always fighting priority. And what does priority mean? Well, you have your little glowing name tag. It means you are actively winning the game at the beginning of that turn, right? So you want to make sure that you're winning. It's a bit of a win more card because if you're winning, you get that +1 max energy. You get to keep ramping. You get to keep making sure that you're winning this game. And then it's an ongoing ability. So it can get Enchantress. It can get stolen by Rogue. It can get buffed by Spectrum. So there's a few implications to that right there. But overall, I just love... I love fighting over priority for not just having your cards reveal first, but also getting for that bonus ramp. And I can imagine it like when the glowing tag is there, it just gives you that +1 at max energy. So if it switches at the beginning of the turn, you'll see that +1 max energy just goes to whoever has prio. Very fascinating card. I wish this was in Snap. It'd be a really, really fun card to play with. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's get back to the art. Look at this. The black and white inkified variant on the top left looks so good. I don't know what the character is with Wiccan there, but it looks fascinating. Very beautiful. The mid one looks so badass. Oh my god, it's like Celestial Wiccan. It looks so cool. And then the bottom left one is like a Dan Hip / Scotty Young style mix. Very nice. Very nice. Looks fantastic. Amazing ability. I adore this card. This was a great submission. This was a great week. You guys actually crushed it. It was, again, it gets every single week. This gets harder and harder to do, but I love it. I love seeing the creativity that comes out of this community. It's so much fun. The next challenge is going to be 2 keywords. So the basic keywords, like if you go into Marvel Snap, you go into your collection tab and you look at the abilities on the right when you can filter by. Those 6 are your options, and you just need to have 2 of them in the text of the card, and bam, you got your submission. All right, so I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Thank you as always for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.